All right. Okay, welcome. This is James Possible. I'm being joined with Carlo Nalls, who's a friend, someone I met through Facebook. And this is the Wealth Warriors Revolution podcast, the Wealth Slaying Warriors. And if you want to find out about my Facebook group, just go to www.startslaying.com, and it's free for all. Now, this dialogue I'm starting is about Black voices in America, right? And, you know, we have a lot of stuff happening today. If you take me by my color, obviously I'm not Black, and I could say that I don't have a Black parent or otherwise. So I'm just someone who is concerned about where we're at today. I understand financially things that are happening. Carlo and I have talked about these kind of things before, but I also understand the historical significance of why we are here in this moment. And the thing that just really scares me is that we have a white population, statistically, depending on the stats that you look at, that the typical white family has a wealth that averages somewhere around $170,000, $180,000, while we take the typical Black family and they have a wealth that averages somewhere between $15,000 and $17,000. Mm. That's a 10 times or more difference in wealth. And not even getting into some of the aspects of wealth that I think are really critical, just on surface value. For me, that's frightening. And it's frightening for many reasons, but I think one of the biggest concerns I have is that as an adult looking at all this, this is really not what I thought America was. Mm. You know, and I don't see. I'm a firm believer in that thought that says, you know, you're only as strong as the weakest link. And to be clear, I want to be really clear. This is not saying Black people are the weakest link. This is saying the wealth of the Black community is the weakest link in America right now, because even Latinos on average are above, which, you know, it's concerning, right? But then when we start taking the historical significance of the Black family within America and all the things that have happened, it just compounds. It just gets even scarier. I am somebody who's dealt with a lot of trauma in my life, and I firmly understand, I firmly agree with the thesis of generational trauma. Because it's just real. I mean, if you're in a situation that is, we're talking 400 years, and that's like 15 or more generations that have lived through trauma, and it has impact. You can't say that it doesn't have impact. And so what I'm looking to do with this conversation is to get myself out of the way, get my white self out of the way, and really come at it from the perspective of different people, Black men, Black women, single, married, with a family, with not a family. It matters not to me. I just want to get some perspective, not just for myself, but I think it's important that we get this out to the world today, because we're locked in arms in these battles that are happening way up here, mm-hmm. with people that, you know, billions and trillions of dollars. And I'm saying, no, wait a second. The real struggle is happening down here with boots on the ground, people trying to survive. And we've got to get real with each other, and we've got to understand what each other is going through. And so that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with this. I don't know where it's going to go. I already told you that, Carlo, and even you shared that thought as well. That I don't, and I will keep doing these until I feel a need to stop. I just think it's an important message, an important voice that has to be heard, and I'm here to be a change agent. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. I think it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah. So let's see. So Carlo, you tell me, what do you think? When did money first for you become something that you noticed?
I think I kind of noticed it when I was but still ignorant of it. So I'll say that. So noticed it probably when I was in high school going into the military. So I was one of those people who went into the military right out of high school. Right?
Okay.
Because I saw it as a means to an end,
Sure.
And to be quite frank with you, most of my family, the men,
right.
That's what they did. So they were my role models, right? Okay. And especially the ones who I looked at as successful.
Right.
They, at some point in their career, they went into the military. So that's what I did, following in their footsteps. And I guess I say I noticed money because one thing that was abundantly clear is my family didn't have a lot of it. And like I said, those who I regarded as successful had money.
Yeah.
Because this is you talking, I'm 17 years old. But when it became relevant and when it became important to me was when I understood the difference between real money and what I had been formerly calling money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was recent. This is like in the past 2 to 3 years, maybe. Okay. This is around 2016 going into 2017.
Sure. Yeah.
So this is a fairly recent discovery, I must admit to you. I honestly, until recently, just discovered what real money actually was. The characteristics, how, it's actually expected to grow in value and not, lose value. So I would say that's around the time that it became relevant or got on my radar.
Okay. So the lineage of going into the military, was that a financial motivation or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like I said, single parent household, and very, I would just basically, I won't say poor, but it's like you're barely getting by. It's the run of the mill, paycheck to paycheck, growing up in that type of household, right? This is really, more than average in America, to be honest with you,
Sure.
The whole paycheck to paycheck scheme. But even that was just not tolerable for me. You know what I mean? I wanted better. I was pretty much, sold into the American dream as well, right? But, I guess, I listened to a lot of Martin Luther King, right?
Okay.
And he had this, one of his speeches, he talks about the other America is what he called it.
Okay.
And it was really interesting the way he broke it down, but he was showing that there were really two Americas.
Sure.
And I think he was speaking to a university when he gave this speech, but it was really interesting in the fact that the way he laid it out and the fact that, let me be blunt, when black men were freed, there were also poor white people at the same time, right? Just like today. But a lot of black people, actually, most if not all, were free, but were not given anything, right? So you're free, but you're still suffering because you don't have anything. You don't have a roof over your head, nothing. But at the same exact time, a lot of even poor white people in the West were being given land. And And it's this speech that Martin Luther King was giving, he was breaking this all down
Sure.
and putting it in perspective for the audience. And you got to think it was academic people, right? Because it's in a university.
Sure.
And so he was laying it out pretty detailed. But my eyes became open because it told me that in what he called the floor, in other words, this is your foundation, your groundwork. We started from nothing, right? In so many ways, coming from slavery into freedom, but with a lot of suffering because you don't really have what you need, right?
Yeah.
So
there's
freedom with a but.
Yeah.
So
a huge but. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reality, that's just the reality. It's not something that I'm complaining about or, you know what I mean, trying to belabor, but it is a reality. And the fact that he spelled that out so good and I picked up on it. And then the thing came to me is what could I do about my situation? Right?
Ah, okay.
So
now, how old were you when you saw that? Or, how long ago do you think that was?
This is probably, within the last 5 to 10 years.
Okay. So this is right in there with all the insights opening up for you. I get it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So it's all kind of falling together in weird ways, things kind of work themselves out.
Sometimes they do, don't they? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of stumbled upon Bitcoin talking to my my father-in-law.
Right.
And once I dug into it, I'm an IT person, and once I dug into Bitcoin and really looked at it and stopped dismissing it, I started understanding money better, and it led me down this crazy path. And then of course, when you start studying money, you cannot help but run into gold. So I started understanding gold, and so therefore I started understanding assets a little better.
Yes.
Everything just clicked when I actually understood the true definition of money.
Yes.
I guess that would be in a nutshell. I don't even know if I answered your question.
You did. And you're not alone in that, because it's like I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad like years ago, right? And in fact, I think I read all his books that he had out at the time. And I even bought the game because I wanted to play with my children, because I wanted them to understand what assets were, right? And I have to say that logically I understood what assets were, but practically I wasn't doing that. And looking back, and really it's just only in the last year and a half that I've had that epiphany where I look back and I realized decades of time just wasted not understanding assets. And it hurts, it really, spiritually, internally, it just really hurts knowing that what was taken from me was time, because I didn't understand really what was going on, and from an asset perspective. So it's not enough to understand assets in a logical sense. You really have to understand it in a practical sense, which means actually using them, acquiring them, and using them. And so that's wonderful. So from your family perspective, given the history that you talk about with the military and stuff, what did your family have much conversation about money?
None. Zero.
Yeah.
Zilch. Like I don't recall not one conversation other than save it.
Right.
Other than save it, it was just pure, hey, make sure you save your money, don't spend like you're crazy, just the typical on the surface conversation. Nothing, like I said, the definition of it, none of it, because I believe it was just, I believe they didn't know, you know what I mean? That's the conclusion I have to draw.
Well, you and I know enough about this that, this is not every person understanding. So yes,
Correct.
Yes. And even being more so, we're talking about Black America, That's wow. The idea that that would have even been a thought in Black America is, yeah. I mean, it was barely a thought in white America. So
Right.
yeah, you had the redlining going on, all those other things. So that's another thing I wanted to ask you about is, so what about home ownership and things like that? Was that something that you grew up with it or not?
No, it's something that I'm totally in now. I guess in the latter part of where I'm at in life right now. But no, I mean, because we didn't, like my family, it's just apartments,
Right,
project housing,
right.
apartments, and then, eventually as they got older, they were able to finally get into a house. But I myself, I see it as a land. I think land is important because now that I'm looking at assets and whatever, I do think land is good because it produces, right? So, or you can produce on it. And, but yeah, like growing up, it was never really a conversation. It was not something we had.
Right.
So, I just kind of, I learned a lot by being, one good thing about the military though, you kind of get forced into a situation where you're amongst other people of different backgrounds, races,
Okay.
cultures, kind of like a mesh pot, right?
Sure.
And so you are kind of like thrown into it, and we're all told the same thing, you follow these instructions. So we had a common, I guess, goal amongst a lot of different backgrounds. But I learned a lot by being around, and these conversations, more conversations came up amongst my peers in the military around things relating to finances, such as, I think the first time I heard about a government bond, I was actually in the military. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It's
Yeah.
because some guys, to be honest with you, it was a couple of white guys, and they were talking about, I had no idea what they were talking about.
Right.
And I think it was a treasury bond or something. And he had put some money in it, and he received mail, and he had gotten his money,
Right.
right? And I was fascinated by this, because in the military, we're all together in a like a working environment, like a
Sure.
shop.
Sure.
And so it's all of us, right? And I see him get his mail, and he's talking about buns and how he got money. So my antenna, is raised, right? It's these little moments that I can distinctly recall in my past that were crucial, to me probing and trying to find out more and understand more. But it told me one thing, that, man, he has a leg up on me, because he's not only talking about it, he's doing it,
Doing it.
whatever it
Yes.
is, right?
Yes.
I don't even know what it is, but he's
But he's
doing
doing it. Yes.
and he's
Yeah.
leveraging it because his parents told him about it. You see what I mean? Like, I have no clue what it even is, but I
Yep.
want to know. I want to understand it. In other words, I want to know, what is it that I'm missing that he got, and he's so happy. I mean, that joker's smile on his face, I don't even think it was more than $200, to be honest with you. But it was just the fact that he got it, and
Right.
it was money that was made without him doing nothing but putting money in it.
Yep.
So I don't know, just that thing that stands out to me, because that was a critical point in just one of those other moments in time that I recognized was critical for me to witness.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's really powerful that you were actually able to hear that and then internally say, I don't know enough. There's something that
Absolutely.
I'm missing. And yeah, those seeds are being planted, and you're aware of that happening.
Right.
I love that. Now, what do you think? So from a perspective of being Black, right? Were you somebody that experienced issues with money because of,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
say something about that.
I'll say, most definitely, man. When I, cause and I keep bringing up the military only because it wasn't my first job, but it was my first career type job,
Sure.
right? Something that I'm in for a longer period of time, I'll say. And so during this time span, because remember, I could write out of high school, and this is the job that I'm taking, is to be a soldier, right? Basically, I was in the Navy, and but I go, and the first thing I do when I get liberty, when I get off that ship, is I go and I buy a gold chain, but I don't buy it. The merchant tells me that I don't have to have the money. I can just get it on credit. I don't even know what credit is. But all I know is I can get that gold chain. It was a little rope chain.
Sure.
And I don't even know what gold is, mind you, but I want it, right?
Okay.
So, and he, it's a little rope chain that I wanted, and he tells me I can get it. All I got to do is sign this paperwork, and I'm going to pay. I think it was like $20 a month. It was something, so trivial, but I paid it no mind, no regard. I just did it, signed my name, and that was my introduction to credit when those bills started rolling in. And it was so easy that it was nothing for me to do that with a car, with everything else, right? So I'm learning money through credit from that angle. So, but yeah, so basically I said all that to say that's where things went really south for me, because I didn't see a what's the word can I say? I didn't have a good role model in the fact of paying off bills, and
sure.
that being something that means that, how can I say, like it wasn't a big deal for me to not pay a bill.
It wasn't important. Yeah.
It wasn't important. Right?
Wasn't a priority.
I'm a teenager going into my 20s now, and what was important was going out and having fun, and if I want something, I can just go buy it on credit. You know what I mean? Like that was truly the mentality, and I'll pay it when I pay it. Right. So, but during that span, I got into a lot of trouble with money because my credit score went south, of course, because of not giving it true credence. And so I really learned the hard way. And then, of course, it's a lot easier to get into credit problems than it is to get out of it, right?
Yes.
You just find yourself behind the ball. Interest is mounting. It's like a never-ending cycle. You cannot pay stuff off if you're always paying the minimum, because you get into this rut where you have enough bills where you just have enough to pay the minimum. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Especially if you're entry level in the military, that salary is not a whole lot to be doing that type of stuff on. So I just wasn't money smart, and it got me behind the 8 ball during that span in my life. And I probably spent like 10 years or more to get out of that, of what I trace back to that moment. But I think it took me about 10 years to get out of that rut,
Oh, yes.
I mean, to a point to where, I'm not in any type of credit situation, because I don't see that as the answer to my problems, or when I go buy something, it's truly to go buy it and not just throw it on another credit opportunity, So
yeah,
I think it took me about 10 years, man, to get out of that situation.
It's a big deal. It is. It's
Yep.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I've been through my battles too. So it now looking at where we're at today, the for you looking at all of this, because there's so much happening, and talking about economics and money and Black lives, and and I say Black wealth matters.